right, so good morning everyone. It's 7:09 here in the morning, so it's coffee time. And yeah, warmed up. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat and I'll try to help you out if I can. And obviously you need to go check out practice room if you haven't already. I think everybody's sleeping. Yeah, good morning, Vlad. It's very early for the EU. It's 7:15 here. But need to try different streaming times as well. Did you get the practice done yesterday? Oh yeah, you practice in the morning. Good. Remember now. I think I mentioned this, but I'm working myself like on the, not all hammers, but it's I'm very comfortable doing that, leading to a new string, with the pinky, or I mean, basically going from a high string to a low string, pitch-wise, but doing the opposite, it's not as comfortable, and I think it's useful to work on that as well. Actually, it's more about the muting for whatever reason. I'm very used to doing this with this direction, but actually that worked pretty well. Anyway, it's a good thing to focus on just the left hand. You guys familiar with Eric Steckel? It's like a blues, wouldn't necessarily say shred, but it's like this blues in the vein of Gary Moore. Like huge, amazing sound, amazing phrasing, and it always sounds like it's gonna break into this like crazy picking run, but it kind of never does. But his tone is insane. And he uses a shit ton of downstrokes, and it actually makes a big difference, I think, for like phrasing stuff. So if you're playing a scale or whatever, and you're going for speed, well then, you know, alternate picking in some way, or, you know, economy picking, that's a good idea, because you don't really want that, you don't want to do that, right? But for like just going, you can get way more dynamics by doing that. Just the downstroke. Because one of the worst things I know, like what I really don't like hearing, is when people do this, when they do any kind of phrasing stuff, where it's like, everything's like very even, and it's great for, you know, for when you pick faster stuff, because then you want everything to be that even. But when you play slower phrases, it can kind of sound like a bad Guitar Pro. So. Eric, I think that's the name. I think it was some sort of like, almost like Joe Bonamassa, like guitar prodigy type kid, but then grew up and was actually really good. That's the tricky thing with guitar prodigy or any prodigy thing, where you're like, wow, that's amazing for, when everyone says like, this, you know, person is amazing for, and they qualify it by age, it's a bit like, well, if it, you know, it's either good or it's not, right? And so I think you can get into trouble when you get older if you get like lauded as like, wow, look at this kid, he's so good. And then when you turn 15 or 18 or 20 and you're still kind of equally good, then people are gonna be like, it's just a, you know, decent early 20s player. So I even think Mozart had that. Like, he was lauded as his child prodigy, and they lied about his age and all kinds of stuff. But when as he got older, it was, you know, more about his composing, obviously, but it's, you know, that thing. And maybe it's not a big problem for people. Like, yeah, I'm young and people like my playing. It's way too intense for morning playing. Hey, Shahar. Yeah, I figured you would show up at some point. I'm just trying streams at different times. And this stream has so far topped out after 19 minutes, 3 people at the same time. Psychroptic. Oh my god, that sounds loud and very growly. Well, that's a bit different. Also, when you have a band name like Ne Obliviscaris, it's like, yeah, let's just make no one able to find our website. Okay, well, I have a question about pull-offs. Is your finger that is doing the pull-off touching, landing on the lower string after you pull off? Oh, you mean as in, if I do a pull-off on, that I'm hitting the E string? Not necessarily. I think it clears it, if you can see here. Well, if I do here. Well, but also, when you do this, yeah, he has. Wouldn't fuck with him. Get some cauliflowers as well, Vlad, and then you're you're good. Anyway, if you don't know what a cauliflower ear is, it's the thing that wrestlers and, you know, jiu-jitsu guys get, where the ears are looking all fucked up. Generally a bad idea to start fights with them. You shouldn't start fights with anyone anyway, it's just stupid, but definitely not do that. Yeah, for the pull-off though, whether you hit the string, I mean, it's hard to avoid it completely, so I wouldn't do that, but your index finger should, on an electric guitar, not do this. So then, meaning that the string right below, as in like ceiling and floor, it's muted by my index finger anyway. Right? So whether you hit this string or not, it shouldn't make a sound. So if you have something ringing out, then you probably sit too much like this. Which is very like, oh, but that's the proper way to do it. Yes, on classical guitar it is, because that's where you want to have all the resonance, but on electric guitar, when you play single note lines, you do not want to do this, because these will start ringing at a certain point. If you're playing live, for example, it will start ringing very quickly because of the volume. So you need to get the muting down. Well, I've seen wrestlers with like these, well, kind of like these, to protect their ears as well. So one of the, one of the best Swedish MMA fighters, Alexander Gustafsson, who I think beat John Jones in their first fight. Anyway, his ears were so fucked up, so he couldn't use like earbuds because it was just too swollen and weird. But apparently you can fix it once you're done with your career, but yeah, that's how you fix it. Damn, you doctor as well, Shahar. I think you can drain them, because all that shit is like blood and stuff. There's actually one UFC fight where the ear, yeah, was nasty. Just got hit on the ear and it basically burst. Yes, to be able to graduate GIT, you have to learn all 24 caprices on the guitar. So that's why there's, you know, students, corpses of students littering GIT. No, you didn't learn any of that stuff. Actually, we had that Moto Perpetuo Paganini piece in our sight reading class, because it's, yeah, basically in the key of C major, but it goes through, you know, it has a lot of accidentals as well eventually, but it was like a reading exercise thing. So if you listen to the first Razor X album, the Y.R.O song, which stands for Yngwie ripoff, by the way, it's kind of funny. Mike Varney said, like, oh, you need to name this instrumental song as well, Paul. And Paul was like, oh, I don't know. And then it was like, oh, well, if you don't name it, I'll call it Y.R.O. He's like, what does that stand for? Yngwie ripoff, because it has this. It's basically the whole thing is kind of like very Black Star-ish in a way. But in the sort of breakdown of that, or the solo section, he plays part of that Moto Perpetuo, and he got that from this very same class that I went to, but I was there obviously like 10 years after or something. I can wonder if I should include the fact that I'm actually a GIT graduate. It's on my website somewhere, but it's like, I've seen people be like, really? Oh, Berkeley graduate, GIT graduate. And for me, it's always been like, well, you can graduate those schools and still not be able to play very well. So never thought it meant much. But maybe it adds some credibility. So I'm not just this weird Swedish guy playing guitar. Which I am still a weird Swedish guy. Can't take that away. GIT. Fuck yeah. I mean, the school itself is called Musicians Institute, and they have GIT, BIT, VIT, KIT, RIT, PIT as well. Then you can figure out the acronyms yourself. So very, very cool school. At least when I went there. As in, because now you have so much information available on YouTube and shit like that. I was there 95, 96, so you did not have that point. And I remember seeing like Jeff Porcaro's dad was teaching there. So yeah, Jip. No, JIT, GIT. Yeah, exactly what it is. You learn, you know, to do all the stuff that you need, like how you get into hotel rooms, which road to blow, and so on. Very, very handy. That was a really good school, though, seriously. But again, a lot of students ask me, like, should I go here? Should I go there? And now it's kind of like Berkeley, I think, is, and you know, I might be wrong here, but I think it's like $30,000 per year. And to me, that's like, wow. You know, you could. I'm fairly, you know, expensive as a private teacher, but you know, with $30,000, you could study with pretty much anyone several times a week for that type of money. No, I did not. That's cool. How random. You can imagine his parents, like, whatever his name is. I don't think it was King Diamond, but like, hey, little King Diamond, you need to get a job. No, I'm gonna get money from the state. Very, very unlikely. I think the most unlikely story, though, is PewDiePie. You know, he's Swedish, right? And he went to like one of the biggest tech schools in Sweden, but then he dropped out, and his parents were like, oh, what are you doing? And he was like, oh, I just want to stream video games. And they were like, you can't, what, why? And when he started, pretty much no one did it. And I'm not a PewDiePie fan, but I was a bit like amazed when I saw it, like, holy shit, he created his whole own thing. And like wildly successful doing it as well. So yeah, funny how that works out for some people. I'm sure there's a lot of people who says that, and then they're like, yeah, okay, you need to seriously get a job now. Get off food stamps, dude. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any band that gets that amount of money, though. I think. Hey, Scott, nice to see you, man. I think what Sweden at least used to do well was, and I hope they still do it, was like providing instrumental lessons for people who wanted it. Oh, that's cool. Oh, hey, Julian. But I think the only caveat with the instrumental lessons was everyone had to get through like the recorder period first. We sit there with recorder. I still remember fucking taste of the recorder. Ugh. But Well, that's very nice of you, Scott. That's a very different thing, though, than being someone, you know, in this example, like trying to do the PewDiePie thing and they get 2 people to watch their thing. That's very different from actually taking care of your mom. I have to go soon. No, practice for 10 hours, Vlad. Come on now. By the way, Vlad, did you fix that thing where like you didn't get stuck on one thing for 20-30 minutes? That would be a good idea. Oh my god, you must have heard so many bad versions of like... or... sorry for traumatizing you. Good, Vlad. Just get through it and then go on. Vlad, he is a student in my practice room pro. No, which I'm crap at actually mentioning. Oh, so that was the music you... Oh, well, that makes sense. I think Stairway to Heaven probably is like boomer town. It hasn't gone up yet, but it's going up soon. So wait and you'll see how much it will go up. But Boston might be there, you know, bit more fun to hear. And yeah, I get that. I get to hear a lot of like erupting. Yeah, definitely. Thing is, you can, when you're in pro, you get your own practice thread, and you know we have a call, and we build a practice routine around your goals and all that stuff. But then the whole point of it is for you to sit down and practice. And then if you have any questions, you just say, you know, you send me a video, you just post it in the thread, super easy. And then I can reply with video or text, whatever is the best. And initially it might be some questions, but then I usually don't hear a lot from a lot of people for maybe a couple of weeks, and then they come back like, oh, what about this? So it's not like, and I have no cap on like, oh, you can only ask so many questions, because I haven't had to do that. So it's really, really working out well. Yeah, the kissy face. But also, it tends to be like the people who play the loudest aren't necessarily the great players. They good morning, Ian, nice to see you, man. So it must, you know, I think there's some correlation there where like the higher the volume, the louder someone plays, the worse it might be. Yeah, it's not for everyone, Scotty, for sure. But the point is, the problem I try to solve in there is having very specific, you know, if you want to get your picking together, your ear training, whatever it might be, then I build a practice schedule around that for you with all my courses. So, and then the least fun thing when you're trying to practice, sorry, drop my pick, is sitting there like, am I doing this right? Or having someone to give you feedback. And now with this, you can just send a video if you have a question, or you can just ask a question. And that's very, very helpful, because I caught quite a few people, you know, when I asked them, like, can you just send me a video of when you're practicing this? And then you can see different things that I, you know, think they should fix, like maybe they're flopping around with the fingers, or picking is inconsistent, or whatever. Things that if you don't deal with, they will just get worse. And if you don't catch them yourself, you're gonna waste a lot of time. So it's things like that. But you know, not everyone will need that. So. Exactly. They're all right. I haven't done them, you know. I think they're good for finding what picking motion will work for you at a faster tempo. So if you want to learn, for example, well, whatever. Have a good day, Ian. Nice to see you, dude. If you can get it up to that. And then sort of reverse engineer the picking motion from there. Then you kind of know what's going to work at a faster tempo when you play more notes. Because if you you know, when you play slowly, you can get away with, you know, things that definitely won't work when you play faster. So just being able to get 4 or 5 notes out quickly, and most people can, you know, anyone can do that, because it's like context based, right? So what's really quick for a beginner might not be as quick for someone more advanced, but it's still the same thing for the beginner, because it's going to be you're going to be able to play, you know, 4 or 5 notes faster than you can do something, you know, continuously. And then you can learn from that, so you know, because future you sort of shows you the way. Well, that's why I'm so big on practicing very slowly and focusing on the transition time. Right, because your brain needs high quality reps, and the mistake people make, in my opinion, is that they think like, well, I can do this already, so I'm not really practicing, which I think is totally wrong. You need to do as many good reps as you can. Because if you sit like this for 5 hours a day for 6 months, and you never try to speed it up, but you do everything correctly, and you try to basically work on transition time and what I call finger choreography, where, see my index finger? sort of snaps into place. If you do that for 5 hours a day for 6 months, don't you think you will be able to play it way faster without even trying? Of course. And obviously, unless you're insane, you wouldn't do that for 5 hours a day, but just to make a point, right? And people think like, no, you need to push the speed. It's like, no, you don't. You have the speed already. What people don't have in general is the accuracy. And you can try this for yourself. If you can do this faster than you can go sync these two together, you have an accuracy and sync problem, not a speed problem. So, yeah. Well, for picking, yes, I would just start with a single string and try not to look at your right hand, or picking hand, and just try to listen and feel, and try to find a good position where, like, you know, what motion feels the best, you know, where do I get the best sound, because I've seen this with myself, and also all this stuff that I'm talking about, don't do this, it's because I've done it myself, and I don't want people to make the same mistakes I did, obviously. So for the right hand, don't get so stuck up on like, well, you know, my favorite player is Paul Gilbert and he does it like this. That might not work as well for your, you know, body, because you're probably not the same, you know, height as Paul, and all kinds of different stuff that comes into it. So I think if you can sort of divorce yourself from what it looks like and just go by sound and what it feels like. And also, here's bursts can be really very helpful, because no one really cares what it looks like. If it sounds good and it feels good, whatever, right? So I wouldn't do that. Let's see, as I speed up my hand, just sort of gets weird and flail, or I get tired. Yeah, well, that's kind of like if you want to build up fast down picking, right? What you shouldn't do is to like, oh, I'm gonna start at, well, you know, 60 BPM and just go. Then I'm gonna try to go to 70, and 80, whatever, because and sit there for a long time. Because what happens is that after a while, when you do that, you're gonna get fatigued, and as soon as you start locking your wrist, you're gonna start shitting doing this. So a better way here is to do it at close to the tempo where you want to be, but you do just 2 notes, and then and you pause in between, and when that works, you do 3. But it's important to reset it the whole time so you don't start building up tension. So, and of course you can say it. That's fine, but I think using the speed burst in this example is very helpful. Yeah, but I think you're suffering from the Y.R.O disease, and this is from a blog post that Terry Sivek wrote, and it stands for "Got It Figured Out." And he basically told a story when he was at Berkeley, and you know, he would have a friend come up like, "Hey Terry, like I got it figured out now." He's like, "Yeah, I saw Paul Gilbert, and he picks from the wrist. So that's what I'm gonna do." And they're like, "Oh great, go do that." And then a week later he would come up like to him again, and Terry would be like, "Well, how's the picking going?" He's like, "Well, I got it figured out now for real, because I saw Yngwie and he uses more of his fingers, so I'm gonna do that." And you can understand what's going on here. So he would do that with, like, every week was a new thing, and he never settled into anything. He just kept changing it. So, and that's a big trap. And again, I've done this myself, because it's like, oh, I love Petrucci, so I'm gonna do this. And then like, well, Vinnie Moore, he does this. But Paul Gilbert, he does this. But then you have Demiola, he does something similar as well. And then you never get anywhere with doing that. So, and also, one thing that's important here is that have an angle to the strings, but move your hand as you go up so you maintain that angle, because a lot of people get into this where they go and then you get this wrist in a weird position, and also you're really hitting the high E string here at a very steep angle, which gets a really shitty sound. So that's another thing where like I care more about the uniformity of the sound, so I can sound you know, I get a, it doesn't change the sound more than that. It goes up and down in pitch, and I think that's really important because I mean, I know now it's so much Instagram and YouTube and social media, but it's meant to be listened to, right? So if it doesn't sound good, who the fuck cares what it looks like? So, and a lot of people are like too much into that. We're like, wow, look at his hand, it's like it's barely moving. It's like, yeah, but it kind of sounds crappy. Yeah, but it looks cool. It's like, who cares? So find something that sounds good and feels good, and then you're good. Because if you look at all the great pickers, Steve Morse does it wildly differently from Paul Gilbert, who does it wildly differently from you know, Y.R.O and so on. So getting hung up on that is a big time sink, I think. I was always more of a rhythm player, and that feels natural, but the same thing doesn't work on the thing. Well, I think there might be an angle thing, but also if you've been doing like smashing a lot of rhythm stuff, and you really, you know, done hours doing this, of course it's gonna feel different here if you haven't worked on it. So a good exercise to do, if you take this is the 5th fret. And basically you take 3 fifths. So you have a fifth between an E and A, D and G, B and E. It just sounds nicer than going. You can do that if you want. This is more of a right hand thing. But anyway, so that's the pattern. Then you go through just doing 4 notes. Move up a half step. But just because you do 4 notes, you don't want to practice it at like... That's not the point. The point is really listening and feeling what, you know, feeling the feeling. No, feeling what finding something that feels comfortable, and then also really listening to what you're doing. Because that's another thing where like people are like, oh, what do you think about pick depth? Like, it's irrelevant, because I don't look at the guitar like, oh, how deep am I in between the strings? I listen to it, because if the pick is too much in between the strings, you're gonna get a very strong attack, which you might want at some point, but you know, you need to listen to it, and then the pick depth will be what it will be. So you do that, but really trying to get every note to be uniform. And you can go all the way up and back again. And if you're really thorough, you should do this starting with an upstroke as well. And then you want to do the same thing with 3 notes. So you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you do 2 notes. And finally you can do 1 note if you want. And that's actually, you know, really good to do the 1 note as well, because you get to do this, go back and, you know, up and down like that. So you get to work on that transitioning from this string to that string without doing this, right? And a great thing to do as well is to do this with just downstrokes. So on, and then, you know, 3, 2, and 1, and then you do the same thing with upstroke. Well, have you tried just picking the, I mean, try this exercise obviously, but all available in the guitar gym. But if you do this, just if you know that, okay, I can't do this on the high E string, just start on the high E string, sit in front of the TV and just go and listen, like really listen, like what's the sound? What happens when I pick the string? I think as guitar players, we're so like, oh no, I'm advanced, I wouldn't do this thing, it's like beginner stuff. No, it's fundamentals. There's a reason why really good violinists, they still work on just an open string, long note, even though they can do that, but it's just to reinforce the good habits, right? Really listen, like, okay, and when you do this, you will also see why transition time, meaning how fast you move through the string, is so important. Because if I do this, slow everything down, it sounds horrible, but if I go, even if I go, yeah, but that transition time can help you with that as well, because when I do this, it's kind of the same, the goal is to get the same speed as that, but just basically in sort of stop motion. So the speed at which I pass through the string should be as fast as I can do it. So all that stuff is super important to do, and so don't think like, wow, I've been playing for X amount of years. Who gives a shit? If you have trouble with something, you need to deal with it, right? And if you have to sit like this in front of the TV every night for 30 minutes, you know, then that's what it is. Well, everyone is impatient. I'm impatient as well, but I also know that the more I fuck around and like try to do things fast and I can't do it, it's gonna take even longer. So the paradox here is that doing this will get me to my goal faster. So the only thing I think that's bad with the way that I do it is it can be boring, because a lot of people want to be like, that's how they want to practice. But I don't care who you are, you will not be in the same, even though that was, you know, all right and clean, it's not the same quality as, I don't have the same control as, you know, when I do it slower. Yeah, well, you know, good night, Shahar. I'm 46. Scotty, and I had actually a thing like a few years ago. I was like pissed off, like, why the fuck do I need to practice still? You know, I've been doing this for over 30 years. I shouldn't have to need to do this stuff. But then I realized, like, well, if I go to the gym, or if I don't run for a month, and then I try to run at the same pace as I did when I stopped, that will be a horrendous run, right? So we kind of need to keep this shit up. To stay sharp. So it's just a nature of things. But and a really helpful thing is to use a timer, and 5 minutes is a good one. So you just turn on the timer for 5 minutes, and then for the next 5 minutes you can only do X. So if you do this thing, for example, and you do that. So because a timer can help you compartmentalize things where you can only, you know, whatever you're practicing during those 5 minutes, you can't be more effective than that, right? Assuming you don't do stupid shit, like, then that won't help you. But if you do something like you repeat something very clean and relaxed and all the stuff I've talked about, then you can sort of relax in that and be like, yep, I'm just gonna do this now, and then you can choose something else in 5 minutes. No, this is how Rusty Cooley used to organize his practice. I've been doing it for 40 years. What can I play like Yngwie could do it after 4 years? Well, because Yngwie, so the thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, Yngwie is bullshitting. He says he never practiced, but I do believe him in the sense that he said he's never done like this, where he picks a. And I believe he never did that. But I also think if you spend like he did, like 8 to 12 hours a day, every day, like for years, literally years, and you filter that through a very disciplined thing in terms of like he said it in some guitar column where like he never allowed himself to play, you know, sloppily, out of tune or out of time, right? So you can, and if you have that amount of time that you're playing every day, and you make sure that you don't, you know, do something stupid, then you're definitely gonna improve very quickly, because you have this, all those hours are filtered through these quality filters, whereas a lot of people don't do that. They sit around and play shit that sounds, I mean, this whole like, oh, push the speed and clean it up later. A fucking stupid advice, because people don't clean it up later. So well, it sounds like you did mostly rhythm, and you know, if you spend a lot of time doing one thing, of course you're gonna get better on that thing. So I think you need to do the other thing. And not be like, well, I've been playing for X amount of years and I can do this. Like, yes, but if you would tell me like, oh, you're gonna play a slide guitar gig in a week, I would shit my pants, because I can't play slide guitar. I have a slide, but I can't really play it, because I haven't practiced it, right? So doesn't matter that I can sweep pick and alternate pick and, you know, nose pick and whatever. No, it doesn't come into it. So well, I don't think that's setting your sights too high. I mean, I was super into Yngwie almost from the start of when I started playing, and I learned that thing 6 months into playing guitar. And before you go like, wow, good for you, you must be so talented, I played it at this tempo. Right? So I just learned what it was, and then I knew like, oh, okay, so this is the way to get that sound. I couldn't play it anywhere close to what it should be, but it also gave me sort of like a realization that, okay, this is what it is, and what's standing between me sounding like the record and, you know, from where I'm at now, it's just more practice, but also not just doing this thing over and over again. I would work on my general picking technique. So that's where all like, when people are like, oh, exercises are boring, maybe, but these things are gonna help you way more than you think, because you also don't have like a an emotional attachment to being able to play this quickly, because it's just an exercise. You can just focus on correct technique, and then you get through the practice routine, and then when you've done that, then you can say like, oh, maybe I can try this again. And you try, you know, playing it a bit faster for fun when you've done your actual accurate practicing before, because then you've done so many good reps that you fucking around a little bit and then playing a little bit over your ability will just help you. So yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing, though. And also I think it's a very bad idea to try to get your technique up just by learning solos. You want to get the technique up so you can play the solos, but I don't think it's a good idea trying to start there. It's kind of like if you look at like gymnastics, like, you know, when they do these crazy floor routines and they, you know, flop around like crazy. If you're like, oh, I want to learn that, you would kill yourself if you try to like, oh, I'm gonna try this Olympic routine, and that's how I'm gonna develop my ability to do this. No, you have to go through really boring, weird exercises to build your body and build your, you know, gradually get used to doing those motions. Which is like the technique practice on guitar, where it's like it's more isolated, right? But trying to like put together all these different things, and also if it's a good solo, it's usually going to be a mix of techniques. And if you can't do, you know, one of the techniques, how are you gonna? Nah, it's just a bad way to do it. And another thing that's bad about it is that you tend to start hating the solo because you played badly so many times, and you like, and like you said, you feel like you can't do it because it's so hard. Well, I think that's one of your issues then. You know, I don't find it fun to do this, but I know what it's gonna lead to, which is way more fun. And it's also like, if you look at classical musicians, which are way better in terms of technique and consistency in performance, right? Because that's their job. You can't get up on a stage and play a Chopin etude and fuck it up. That doesn't work. So that's like a given. They get graded on like how they interpreted that work. So they practice better. But if you look at any of the great super virtuosos, from Itzhak Perlman on violin to whoever on piano, they still practice scales and things like that to keep the technique up. And the reason for that is that, you know, if you can play a harmonic minor scale, like I just did, and you learn a new piece of music and it has a harmonic minor scale in it, you don't need to practice that because you can already play it, and you sort of keep all that stuff sharp. So the only thing you need to do is like, okay, so it has this run that you can play in your sleep, but then, okay, so, oh, I haven't done that before. Then that's what you need to practice, because you can already do, you know, the thing previous. So. Yes, but when you're trying to learn a solo, Scott, like Yngwie or Randy Rhoads or whatever, you're not creating either. You're trying to reproduce it, but you can't do it because your technique isn't there. So I don't see the relevance here. If you're talking about improvising, then it's still improvisation. You still need to, if you want to be able to improvise in like a B.B. King type of way, you still need to have, you need to have get the vibrato going correctly for that style, and you know, get the whatever, get the phrasing down, and there's a certain technique attached to that as well. If you want to do more Yngwie stuff, then you need to have the technique for that, and or like more technical stuff. So depending on where you want to go with your improvisation or solos, you still need to have that technical level to be able to do that. Yes, but it's still the same way, I think, from what I could surmise from your writing, Scott, that it's like, yeah. So you need to, that's the thing, like, well, how much technique do I need? Well, if your life's goal is to play in an AC/DC cover band, you're gonna need a certain level of technique. If your life goal is to play Dream Theater in a cover band, then you have more practice to do. Neither is better or worse, it just is what it is. The same thing with classical. If you want to play, you know, if you want to play Bach violin partitas, that's going to take that's a certain level of technique. And if you want to play the Paganini caprices, that's going to take a higher level of technique. But it's not better or worse, it's just, you know, it is what it is. So I think in your case here, since whatever you've been doing so far hasn't been working, so maybe try the mundane exercises. And I also think it's like, even with improvisers, it's someone like, well, I would never work on this because I would have played that in a solo. Yes, but that's like saying to a, you know, boxer or MMA fighter, like, why do you go out running? You're not going to run in the octagon. It's conditioning. You learn to do things better, and it's more focused on a certain thing. That's why it's not musical, because it doesn't need to be. You just need to get your technique together. So my life goal is to play what's in my head, and technique is my roadblock. However, when I do too much mundane stuff, that's all that's in my head. I'm thinking about it. Yeah, but you don't need to do all technique or no technique, right? And also, if you feel like the technique is a roadblock, well, why don't you sit down, work on your technique for a while, and just be like, well, you know, my creativity will suffer for a bit, but then when you up your technique, then you can just work on the creativity. I think it's a bit of a cop-out, I think, because I think you don't want to work on the technique stuff because you find it boring, and you find it more fun to do the other stuff. Yeah. So that's the thing, I think, and that's the thing for a lot of people, myself included. Sometimes we're like, oh, I can't fucking be bothered to work on this stuff, but I do know that I need to do that if I want to be able to play the way that I want to be able to play. So, and you know, sitting down and doing, you know, any type of exercise, that's not fun. Well, I think, one, I don't know how you practice, but if you actually practice correctly and you don't make mistakes when you practice, then I think it's just you haven't put in enough time. And also, I think, for example, when I went to GIT, the teacher there, Nick Nolan, well, one of the teachers, the rock teacher, he had like a rock guitar curriculum, and when it was 10 seminars, basically, they did one a week. And 1 week he went through alternate picking, right? And he's been teaching there, when I was there, he's probably been teaching for like 7 or 8 years. And the way that they teach at GIT, among other things, it's you have an instructor, and it sits in a room like this, and then you have amps lining the walls, and then, you know, you can have like 7, 8, 9, 10 people, depending on the size of the room, in at the same time and asking the instructor and so on. And usually people will be there for at least 6 months to a year. I was there for a year. So if you then go every time to the same teacher, when they usually would have like 2-3 slots per week, where they would be sitting there for 2 hours, he could get a pretty good idea of like the progress of his students. So he said in his experience is someone who has very little alternate picking ability, if they practiced every day for 2 hours a day of just alternate picking exercises, in about 3 months' time, they would impress themselves. He doesn't say that, oh, then in 3 months, they would be Yngwie, or they would be Paul Gilbert, or they would be Al Di Meola. It's just that they would impress themselves with like the progress they made. So I'm just trying to give you an idea here of like, you need to get a specific technique, especially like alternate picking, to get over that hump. It takes more time than people want to spend. That's why you don't see a lot of people with good alternate picking, because they don't, they think like, wow, god damn it, I've 20 minutes a day I've been doing alternate picking exercises for 2 years. Yeah, that will help you a lot for sure, but to really get it down, and you see this with all these, like, Baxty, for example, he worked his ass off on alternate picking. People get obsessed with a technique. Paul Gilbert, all these guys. And they developed that in a fairly short time. But that's still like probably 6 months to a year where they like really got their, 80% of the technique, and then they keep refining it after. But it takes way more time than people want to admit. And this is not helped by people putting out courses like, get your alternate picking up in 30 days in only 30 minutes a day. That's bullshit. No one selling that course did it that way. So it's crap. Yeah, but have you tried practicing strict alternate picking and doing it correct? I mean, you said you can't even pick on the higher strings, right? So it sounds like you have things to fix there. And obviously there's nothing wrong with your body. Your legato works much better because you worked on it. So it's like, it's the same thing here, but alternate picking takes more time because you need to get the synchronization down. And the only way that I know to get the synchronization really good is to work on it slowly and make sure you don't get any flams, right? When one hand is ahead of the other, you need to get it absolutely down perfectly. Yeah, but is that 16th notes at 80 to 90 BPM? And what tempos do you practice at? Because like I said, I don't practice fast at all. I could, that's fine, that was clean, but I would never practice like that, ever. Because I know that that's not going to be as perfectly synchronized if if you compare it to. And I'm definitely not in the same control either. So I don't go above eighth notes at 80 BPM, because above that tempo I have a harder time getting the transition time going and making sure that I do the finger choreography and all that stuff. So are you part of the practice room, Scott? If you are, you can find the alternate picking deep dive. I have a free version of that in there, so you can try that, and then that will help you a lot. I'm always up early, Ake. Yeah, but you need to do it as well. So, but I don't think you should practice at that tempo, like you said. So, and especially if you need to deal with the E string issue as well. So, and like I said, it takes time to get it together. Yeah, Ake has done it, and Ake's picking is way improved as well. But I just think, Scott, there's nothing wrong with your body. I just don't think you've put in the work that you think you've put in. And most people don't want to do that because it's boring. And it is. But if you want to get up to that level, that's what you need to do. I think anything that's hard to get, it's not hard, but it takes time, and people don't want to put in the time. but that's what makes it kind of cool as well. You put in 20,000 hours on picking. I have a hard time believing that. But equally, maybe you did, but you need to do it in the correct way. Otherwise, if you sit there and like, that's not going to help you. That's why it's need to get it perfect, no matter the tempo. And this is not just me saying it. I mean, you probably saw that in the practice room thing where I posted a thing that Frank Gambale talked about, like where he said brain is like a computer, which I agree, you know, and you need to really put in the correct amount of time, because if you do it incorrectly, you're just programming the wrong shit. Yeah, he is, but also he's awesome because he's done this stuff the way, you know, that it should be done. And it's really weird now because I've heard him talk about like, oh, practice sweeping, you need to practice that fast, and there's like, that's not what you said in this workshop from '89, and you can really tell that like your technique was like very much on point there. So hey Ryan. Yeah, I think, you know, it's that's a lot of time, but if you think about, let's see, 365 times 40. Yeah. Well, then it's not 40 years then. Then it's 30 years. Also, in 30 years, if we do the math, if you say you've worked on picking for 20,000 hours, that would mean 30 times 365, that's 10,950. That would mean that you basically then, for every day for 30 years, you've been practicing picking for almost 2 hours a day. And there's no way in hell anyone has done that. So. But like we talked about before as well, well, like this whole GIFO disease, got it figured out disease, when you keep switching, like, oh, I'm gonna pick like Paul Gilbert, no, I'm gonna pick like Petrucci, no, I'm gonna pick like Steve Morris, no, I'm gonna do this. You keep changing things. So that's crazy. Well, playing and practicing are different things as well, which the whole thing about deliberate practice and all that stuff, you know, where if you heard about deliberate practice, and it's actually Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Outliers, and he talks about the 10,000 hour rule. But he took that actually from a Swedish scientist who did all these studies, and he was based in Florida. But he said that it's a because people are like, well, that doesn't, you know, that doesn't make sense because I've been driving for more than 10,000 hours throughout my life, but I'm no expert driver. And that's because people, it doesn't count that you sit in a car and drive, you know, while thinking about other things going to work. You're not constantly trying to improve. So that kind of practice is very different. And also what they saw in these studies when they looked at violinists and all kinds of people was that you can't really do more than 4 to 5 hours of this type of practice per day, because you will just burn yourself out. So while you might have a guitar in your hand for 8 hours a day, I doubt you did any of that deliberate practice. So I'm 45 and play for so now I can play back, so almost up to tempo. Do just follow John's minute, works class music. Yeah, but that's the thing. And also my method is just stuff that I picked up from a lot of classical musicians and different sources, right? And it's also what's worked for me and worked for any student that I've taught it to that have actually done it. They improve a shit ton. But there's actually not that many, you know, maybe 1 in 10 of people who come to me are actually really serious. Even there, it's like 1 in 10 that actually sit down and like, I'm gonna get this picking shit done. Because it doesn't matter how good of an instructor I am, I can't practice for people, right? And also it's hard to be sitting there and like actually watching them practice. But I think that's why the Practice Room Pro has been really good, because you have them send videos so I can make sure they're practicing correctly. But let's see, pick angles and all that shit is trying to find motion. His method has been working for me better than anyone else, so that's why I'm here. Yeah, I gave myself horrible tennis. Yeah. Let's see. I meant the crack in the coach it with play fast, pick angles and all that, you're trying to find the motion. His method has been working for me better than most others. Oh, you mean, okay, I was confused. Yeah, I think the cracking the code is, I think he's Troy is a genius and he found all this stuff, but I still think it's approaching it from the wrong angle, because it's like looking at Usain Bolt and slowing his running down, and you can see like, wow, look at the angle of his hip compared to his knees. That's the secret, guys. And you know, oh look, Carl Lewis, when he was at top of his game, he also did a similar thing. And that might be true, but trying to run as fast as they do by focusing on the angle of the hip to your knee is going to be really awkward and weird, right? So I think it's a yeah. I think it's a bit of a problem. I also saw him, they posted like, you should practice fast. Like what speed should you practice at? And I think, I agree with like trying to find a way to find what we talked about a while ago. Oh my God, I've been streaming for 90 minutes. What we talked about a while ago when it comes to the actual finding the pick motion that works for you. Is doing speed bursts is great, because then you can find like, oh, if you can get like 4, 5, 6 notes in a row that works, then you know that motion will work for you at a faster tempo, so you can sort of see future you, and then you can sort of reverse engineer that, so when you practice slowly, it's not completely different. But getting the synchronization down, that won't happen if you just try to do fast bursts the whole time. You need to do slow practice to get it in there. Yeah, but people don't want to hear that. So yeah. Yeah, but now we're back full circle to what we talked about, right? We're like, to fix your picking issue on the high string, start there, you know, close your eyes or look away or whatever, and then just try to feel, listen, and try to feel what works the best for you. Instead of looking. Because when you start looking, you start judging and be like, well, actually, it should probably look more like this. And no. I did this with sweep picking, because I was looking at my right hand, what I was doing, like, I will see like 1, why is my picking like that and then like that on the way back, right? So I was like, that can't be right. That looks weird. So then I tried like keeping it really rigid, and it felt and sounded like shit. So I was like, oh, I guess I should do it that way then. You know, I was like, oh, whatever. I don't care what it looks like. And then I actually looked into Frank Gambale. That's exactly how it looks as well. And now, you know, with the downward and upward pick slanting stuff, it makes sense. But just looking at it, I had an idea like, no, it should look, you know, completely even and nothing should change. And I don't think it's a good way to do it. Yeah, but I get that, but at some point you must be looking at it, because you said you kept changing it and trying different ways. And I think if you do that, you will never settle into anything either. And this, I don't think there's a perfect pick position. I mean, maybe it is somewhere down, but you know, in 100 years, if the electric guitar is still around, we will have more data for it. But as it is now, I think you have different positions that are going to work better for certain things, and other positions are going to work better for other things. So it's kind of so if you want to hold pick like Paul Gilbert, for example, well, then maybe certain things will be harder for you to play and certain things will be easier. So it's more of a trade-off, but then it just means that you might have to work harder on other things. So I think the biggest mistake though is like changing the pick motion and keep doing that instead of just trying to improve everything. Yeah, but I think why people don't get their sync down is because they don't practice correctly. Unless you have some neurological disorder, I believe anyone can learn to do this. Because, you know, if it was one guy out there that could pick fast, and that's the guy, maybe it would be like, oh, maybe that's a real outlier. But there's a lot of people who can pick fast and clean. And lo and behold, most of them have practiced their asses off to be able to do that. So I think that's like the common denominator here. You need to practice more than you want to, and I think people highly underestimate the amount of reps you need to do to really lock something in, and most people won't have the patience for that. And I was completely obsessed with alternate picking when I, started out pretty much. To the point where, like, I had a guitar teacher, and Akke, you will know who this is. He was. Do you remember Carola? She was in a relationship with this Jimmy Kjellqvist for a long time. That was my guitar teacher. He's an amazing bass player, but he taught guitar up in Utah, where I'm from. And basically, he showed me like a Robin Ford thing, and it was kind of like something like this, something like that. And I was like. And like, what are you doing? I was like, what? Well, why are you picking everything? Because it's harder to do that, so it's cooler. He's like, no, you dummy. It doesn't sound right. Like, you need to do... It's like, oh, okay. It's actually about sounding good, not just being difficult. So I was, borderline retarded when it came to the alternate stuff. Yeah, but actually, Scott, Paul Gilbert used to pick like this. So the first Race Rex album, he held the pick, in this way, and then he learned how to do it like this. And he can still do it like that. So it's not about you having to because some people, I'm not saying that you think that, but some people think that, oh shit, I've been doing it wrong for X amount of years or hours. Now I have to redo all those hours and then I can improve. No. As soon as you start doing it the right way, it will get better and you will develop that. So. Another real jag mötte Lassie story, Aka. I thought it was really funny when I saw like Carola, like, what? Jimmy? What the fuck? Yeah, well, yeah, but that's also where, you know, it needs to feel right. You know, that you can feel that you're relaxed, and you know, it should sound right and it should feel right. So obviously, no pain should be there. And it's actually, again, with Frank Gambale, I sound like the biggest fanboy, but he said like, just do something that's natural for your body. Because he said when he was teaching at GIT, he saw so many people like find these weird positions for the right hand instead of just, you know, 45 degrees, keep it like that, and then just go for it. So I think we are our worst enemy sometimes. We just get in our own way, trying to do things. It's kind of like, you know, when people have these elaborate morning routines. Like I've read a shit ton of, you know, self-development books and stuff like that, and like, oh, this routine is the best. You should get up and then you should write your goals down, and then you should, you know, sauna, you have a cold plunge, and then you meditate, and then you do this like this ridiculous 2-hour routine. But when you try doing that, and then like, oh, I haven't gotten anything done. Just exhausted by doing this stupid routine. So just getting down to it right away, not avoiding the work. Just, you know, if I want this result, I shouldn't procrastinate with all this other shit. Then I should just be like, all right, for you, Scott, like, okay, I really want to get this picking down. I'm going to do 2 hours per day from now on, and I'm going to focus on accuracy. I don't give a shit about the speed, just accuracy and that it feels good. And if that doesn't, I'm 100% sure I will help you, but you need to be super honest with yourself. So, no, I love it when people have questions. I don't care if it's the same person. If I have a maximum amount of phrases you can effectively learn. No, I think the more phrases okay, if you learn one blues lick, right, or you go like, then the next blues lick might be, and these are not blues, I mean blues phrases, whatever, right? Whatever, the more phrases you know, the more it starts to become more of like a language. I know that's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. So you start seeing, if you know like 3 blues licks, it's not going to be a language for you. It's going to be like you learn 3 words in English and you try to have a conversation. It's like cat, library, dog. That won't work, right? But if you learn 100 blues phrases or 500 or 1,000, then it starts to become something where you want to express a certain feeling, and then you can do that with the vocabulary that you have. Same thing with my vocabulary in English, which is my second language. It's gonna, how I can express myself is gonna hinge on that, you know, library being good or bad, right? Because I'm not thinking like, oh, I should say this, and this. I'm thinking about what I'm trying, the idea I'm trying to express, and then it's gonna go, you know, well or not so well, depending on my vocabulary. So it's the same thing with music. So you know what you want to express, and then if you have a big library of ideas or like a big vocabulary of ideas, you can, get that out, and you basically can make up new sentences, if that makes sense. So I don't think there's a maximum amount of phrases in that regard. And also I don't think any good improviser sees it like, okay, so now on this chord I'm gonna play this lick, lick 32B. That's more of like it's more of a idea that you already have internalized, and then you can put it together with other things, and that's how you can improvise. Equally, like, I don't think anyone improvises like one note at a time, where like they hear this note, they hear this note, they hear that note, that note, that note, that note, that note. It's more like you hear a phrase, because if you try, otherwise it's like you're trying to speak by sounding each letter at a time, like HELLOIM JON, instead of saying hello, I'm John, right? So, but to get to that point, then you need to learn a lot of phrases that you like, and that's another thing. Make sure you learn phrases you like, otherwise you're gonna be sitting there playing shit. You're like, why did I play that? Because that's part of your vocabulary. So only learn stuff that you like the sound of. Yeah, and that's pretty much summarizes that. But again, that's years of work, and I think the best way to do this is do it by ear. Just listen to music that you like. As soon as you hear something that you like that you don't understand right away, because if I hear this, I know exactly how to do it already. So that's not something that's gonna sort of grab me if I hear it and be like, oh, I need to learn that. But if I hear something, that I haven't heard before, that I think is like, oh, this is really cool, then that's the thing that I'm gonna, learn. And then usually I just try to understand where it's played over and so on. Effectively learning in one day. I could have said that before I went into this big rant, man. No, I'm kidding. Well, I don't know. No idea. I never put a cap on it. That depends on, I mean, if you can play guitar for 30 minutes in a day, then that's gonna put quite a big cap on it. If you can play all day, you're gonna be able to learn more. Also, it's not really, if you learn a phrase and you want to, I mean, if I take something like, I like that intervallic thing, right? And then I can take that, let's say I picked this up from an album, right? And then I can be like, all right, so I'll play over the 4 chord in minor here. And then, okay, cool. But then you can take that through the scale. And you get all these variations, but then and then you can do that in nope. Right, and you do it on all strings, and then you can start experimenting with it. Like, can I take the same sort of contour and do it in pentatonic? Yes, I could. Or can I do it in a completely different tonality? So a harmonic minor, and it's kind of endless. So we go. And after that, maybe you try, what if I have a bigger gap? And that way you can take a small 4-note pattern, go through all kinds of different things, and then you kind of get it out of that, oh, here's a lick mentality, to more like a here's an idea that I have that you can use. Yeah, but that's gonna depend. I mean, it's like certain music is gonna have way more notes in a bar. Thank you, Ake. But so if you're trying to learn like Back in Black, there's going to be less notes to worry about than trying to learn the Cliffs of Dover intro. So yeah, I think it's also varied, but I think you can never go wrong learning things by ear. Hi, Milo. John, how would you feel about combining two scales with each other and only practicing that instead of major and minor scales? Chaotic. First thing I think about. Right? So if I get your idea right here, so by combining the major and minor scale, for example, it would be like 1, 2, flat 3, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, 6, flat 7, 7. Yeah, no. Is that what you mean? It's a lot of notes. I think a better thing to do is take whatever scale you like, say Lydian, and then you look at all the triads, you know, and try to, for in Lydian, for example, if you go between the F and G in this case. Right, that's gonna, you're not adding notes, you're taking notes away. But when you focus on a subset of the notes of the scale, you're gonna bring out certain sounds more than others. So I think I would start there first before you start adding stuff. Yeah, but that's also going to be, Orion. You need to realize that those kind of things, if you learn one, like I don't know, and you're not used to doing any kind of string skipping, even though it's just pentatonic here, you might feel very confused by it. But when you've done that a few times, like, oh, maybe if I take it through the scale, you will get more and more familiar with it. But when you just learn one thing that's very, you know, off kilter, so to speak, it will be harder to remember it. So, and that's actually another thing. Like if you know these chords, for example, and I play them for you, you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, so I have never played it in this key, but I played it here, so you know where to place your fingers. But if I would be playing something like this, that doesn't really make sense musically, you would be more like, wait, what's the second finger and where? You'll be very confused, right? And that's because the way our brains work is that we recognize patterns, but if there's things that are not part of your vocabulary patterns, it's going to be very confusing, and you can't, then you will have to take in one thing at a time instead of just seeing a group of notes and be like, yeah, I got it. So if someone will be playing this, I will be able to do that right away, because it's like, oh, it's a pentatonic scale going down, easy. If it's something more whatever, right, then it'd be like, well, what the fuck was that? And then I would have to do it note by note. They actually did this with chess players and normal people. So they had these chess masters, and they show them like different positions on a chessboard and see if they could remember it. So I think they like flash it for a few seconds, and they did that with people who didn't play chess as well. And the people who didn't play chess did very poorly compared to the chess masters, who basically nailed everything. But that wasn't the experiment. The experiment was to see what happened when they took positions that would never occur in a real chess game, right? So they put the pieces in a way that could never happen in a chess game, and then they flashed that to the same people. And now they did pretty much the same. So the chess masters that have done this and could like play chess in their mind and knew all this shit and could remember any position, they didn't do any better than the normal people, because now you took those pattern recognition things, their chords, so to speak, or their scales were off. There was just random notes all of a sudden. So it's really important to, you know, when you learn something that's very new to you, it's going to take you, you know, a while to get that together before your brain kind of recognizes what the hell's going on. Same thing when like you start learning things. I remember sort of a mentor of mine, he had me go through like funk stuff. Whatever, right? And he said like, well, the first couple that you learn is going to be really hard because it's going to be completely new to you. These kind of things, and like that, you know, all these different chords and rhythms and whatever. But when you've learned 10 of them, the 11th one will go way quicker, because then the pattern recognition starts kicking in. So that's what you need to sort of hang on to and keep. And when it comes to like you said, a weird intervallic lick like that, to speed that process up is to do what I did with this, where when I took it through the scale instead of just sitting doing this for 2 hours. So you can sort of speed that process up by taking something you find tricky and try to harmonize it through whatever scale it comes from at first, and then you develop it yourself. And the cool thing here is that you might find that the original idea was really cool, but when you fuck around with it, and you might find even cooler ideas, and then you can be like, oh, this is my lick, because no one will think like, if I learn this, and let's say that was a really, really recognizable lick, if I then come up with, I don't know, no one will be like, hey, you stole that from this, because this feels like, even though this idea I might never have come up with if I didn't learn the initial thing. All right, closing in on 2 hours now. So, any last questions? You're welcome, man. But you know, when it comes to stuff like this, it's the kind of thing where like, that sounds like a great idea, I'll do that, and then like you never do it. So well, check my channel, there's a lot of fast stuff there. So all right, again, I'm not doing my job. If you guys don't go check that out, I'll be sad. You want to make me sad. And now, new thing in this one, it's always free here to the left, but you can also get the premium where you get a ton of lessons and you can get my help personally as well. So do that and see you next time.